Hello, and welcome to Candid Conversations with Candidates, presented by the Faribault Area Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by the Faribault Daily News. I'm Kim Anderson, Chamber President. The Chamber Board and our Business Advocates Committee are committed to bringing members and the public at large information about the candidates running for elected office. We work really hard to represent the voice of business, promoting growth and prosperity. Our conversations with the candidates for City Council, for School Board, and County Commissioner will be presented in a speech format, and our conversations with state representative candidates and state Senate candidates will join me in a direct conversation. So right now I'd like to turn our attention to our candidates for state representative. We have our incumbent, Patti Fritz, and Dan Kaiser, the challenger, with us. Welcome.
Welcome to you. Thank you.
We're going to start out with introductions, and so I'd like to have you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you've decided to run or run again. And ladies first. Patti, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you, Kim, and thank you to the Chamber for inviting me again to speak. I appreciate it, and thank you for letting me be here. I would like to take this opportunity, too, to thank the people of this community for their support and the kindness that they have shown me and my family over the past 8 years that I have served as the state representative. Both myself and my husband, Jim, were both born and raised in Rice County, worked in Rice County, and we just last February 8th celebrated our 48th wedding anniversary. I worked here in St. Lucas Care Center for over 30 years. My husband worked at the fire department and for McDonough Truck Line. Also, it is a very important to me to continue to my service to this community because I love this community and the people that I serve. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor for me to serve as the state representative for this district, and I look forward to serving the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thanks, Patti. Dan?
And I too would like to thank the Chamber for having Patti and myself here to talk about the issues and talk about the race. And I especially want to thank you, the viewer, for taking the time to get to know the candidates here as we face our election coming up here real quickly and up on November 6th. Again, I'm Dan Kaiser. I'm running for state representative in the new House District 24B. I've been married to my wife, Mona, for 33 years. It was 33 years in August. Mona and I have been longtime residents here in the district. My wife, Mona, is the director of the Senior Center here in Faribault. We have 3 adult children, and we've been blessed also with 4 grandchildren, which are truly a pleasure in our lives. A little background on myself. I'm employed by the state of Minnesota. I'm a deputy state fire marshal. I'm also, Mona and I are small business owners. We've owned a small business in Medford since 1996. Been very active in the community and in the area. Been active in our church where I've served as our church president. Been very involved in the community on the school in Medford and in the area. Been involved in the county. Been on numerous state boards and also been appointed to a couple of national boards. I look forward to the race, and I look forward to becoming your next state representative as we approach, again, the election on November 6th. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So I suppose we could just make it easier and start talking about our kids and grandkids, because I know we would all enjoy that a lot. But there's issues at hand, right? So first, the economy. We can all agree that we could use some stronger economic growth in Minnesota. So my question is, what strategies will you support and recommend for the legislative session in 2013 to make stronger economic growth a reality for Minnesota? Dan.
I'm glad that you listed that as the first question, because that certainly is the #1 priority that I feel that our legislators should face this coming year. And it needs to be the #1 priority as we go into session and to go up there and simply get the job done. We do not need to stretch out the budget and the budget talks until we get to the midnight hour of the last hour. We don't need to do budget cut or budget talks under the threat of another state shutdown, as our previous legislators have done, nor do we have to do it under the threat of a special session. You need a legislature that needs to go up there and approach the budget to quit the spending have a budget that works within our means and have the priority, number one, to get the job done in a timely fashion.
Patty?
Well, I have served as the state representative from this area for the last 8 years, and every time that I go to St. Paul for session, I'm prepared. And I'm prepared, I think, because of my background as a working LPN, my husband as a middle-class worker, both of us in the community. And then I have had lots of experience with businesses in my own family. But I never realized that I would have the obligation that I have as a state representative to look at and see a spreadsheet with billions of dollars on it. However, I've learned that nothing is free in this world, and we have here in our district great resources for all of us, for our grandchildren, for our children, for us, for our elderly, and those things all need to be paid for and supported, and that is usually what our tax dollar, the revenue that we receive from the tax dollar is for. In the past 10 years, the 8 of the 10 that I have been there, I can speak to. The budget has been a difficult process for both sides and all sides, and I think that it has certainly weighed heavily on people. I know that it has because I hear from people down home. So when I go, I get to work immediately. I am able to craft legislation and have legislation passed for my community. I always keep my community. Furthermost, my constituents, the area that I serve is what I get up thinking about and go to bed thinking about, how I can improve the lives through the jobs and the economic development in my own community. Having said that, I have done that and been successful at it. Want to continue to do that. One of the things that we have going on is SAGE. SAGE is a wonderful business that will employ 160 employees. We have South Central College, which I was able to finally fight for and get $13 million for the expansion of that, plus hooking those two people together so that our young people, young and middle-aged people, can go to school, learn the new technology, and have a job right here in the district. So I look at everything and anything that I can do to bring home to my district. And those are two of the things that I'm very happy about. And continuing along, when I go back, I will continue to look at whatever else we need, and I have some things in mind.
Anything you want to share?
Well, I do have the Technology Center at the Deaf School. That is quite a center that would definitely cite that center there for life. And we have, the governor had it in his bonding bill last year. He had it in my side, I had it in my side, he had it in his. So we thought we could get that accomplished. But the Republicans cut the bonding bill back. Had they not done that, we would be building up at the Deaf School today and have that Technology Center, which will be open to everyone. So that will be, when that happens, that will be a pinnacle piece of legislation for our economy. And this is a good time for our deaf children and deaf people to be able to see more employment opportunities available to them. So I am very excited and look forward to working hard on that.
Thank you. Dan, do you have anything you want to add on that question about the economy or about legislation that would be required to promote the economy?
And again, as I said before, it has to be and it needs to be in the forefront and priority number one. Especially when you look at the city of Faribault. So you talk about jobs, well, Faribault has been hit extremely hard economically wise, and that is reflected in the unemployment rate, which has consistently been going up. As of the last report, it is at 7.7%, well above our neighbor Owatonna and well above the state. So you hear talk about jobs coming to Faribault, but the numbers simply don't show that. We need to put this partisan talk back and forth. We need to get a legislature up to St. Paul that is actually going to work with both sides and get the economy turned around, especially here in Faribault that's been really hard hit.
Thank you. Our next topic is workforce and education. I have a number of questions on education, but I'm going to start on the topic of workforce. Businesses report quite a bit of difficulty finding the skilled workers they need to help their businesses grow. So what advice would you have for high schools and colleges to address that growing skills gap? And Patty, we start with you.
Well, thank you, Kim. I have had that question. Actually, I've asked that question over the past 8 to 10 years myself, looking again at South Central College. There they had a welding schooling for our students, and then they had to discontinue that. One of the reasons, there were not enough students that could fill those slots for those students, and we had a great instructor, but we lost him because we did not have the students. I believe over the last 8 years now, from what I've learned, and because I do serve on, I was a founding member of the Small Business Task Force, so I listen and I've learned a lot. And welding is a very good trade. So I hope that we can get that back at South Central College. One of the things that we needed to do was to improve our college here in town so that our youngsters would go there. That will happen. It's in the works. I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able to do that. And then there's the nursing program, the healthcare program that South Central College offers. However, we had 1960 equipment for those students. So now we have an updated technology lab for our students. So I just toured and saw that last week. I'm very, very grateful for the bonding money that we were able to receive and get down here to do that. So we need to teach and educate our students, our own children here in this district, and we are doing that. We are going to do more of it, though.
Thank you. Dan?
And I concur that even the basis of your question, there is a growing gap for the workforce, and especially in small business. And when you step back and take a look at our economy and how we need to improve our economy, small business is a huge cog in that engine, and we need to do what we can to help fortify the small business. As you go out and talk to small businesses, they will just reinforce that, yes, there is a gap for a strong workforce, that we need to continue the efforts that have been done. As my opponent said, South Central College is a perfect example, right here locally in Faribault. I personally am a product of the vocational school. Back in the day when they called them vocational schools, I graduated from Mankato Vocational. And it's an important benefit and an important tool that we can use as we look at improving our economy as a whole.
Thank you. So Dan, I'm going to stick with you and ask this question. Do you support legislation that would require performance for teachers to be part of the determining factor in layoffs, or do you support continuing the current practice of seniority only?
That's an excellent question, and our education as a whole in the system has significant challenges, and we need to continue to look at that. To answer directly to your question, I believe that performance should be included in teacher evaluation and not just seniority as the rule.
Patty?
Mm-hmm. Well, I do believe that performance is included in their evaluation. The problem is that the folks doing the evaluation, the principal or whoever else, are so busy that they oftentimes don't get to do a very good evaluation. And so we're looking at ways in which we can improve that evaluation. There's been good legislation that that they have brought forth. This is a big discussion, lots of talk about it, and I'm very interested in it. I sort of equate it to my nursing profession because we are always evaluated. I've had some poor people evaluate me and I've always had great evaluations, but I have sat, there's nothing worse than to do your job well and sit before your boss and know that they don't get it. So that is a problem. I think we need to work together. We need to legislators need to find legislation and compromise so that we can help our students, because it's our students that we're trying to help and do good by. So I do believe we need to do more in that regard.
I'd like to have you comment a little bit on the topic about the topic of education. It's such a struggle in our communities to try to figure out, these levies come before us and we all want what's best for students, but it's a complicated issue and the state legislature is squarely in control of it. So what other ideas or solutions would you have on the complicated issue of managing education in Minnesota? Patty?
Well, I think, let's start at the top. We need to help our principals. We need to help our principals be better administrators. It's a huge responsibility that they have. In my office, I meet with everyone. I meet with the principals, I meet with the janitors, I meet with the cooks, I meet with the students, the parents, all of those folks, the teachers also. And I hear the one thing that everybody has in common is they want to do the best they can for those students. And I do, and you do, we all do. I do think that it does take its toll on all of us when we have limited funds and limited revenue. And of course, we have many, many wants. We want to have our children, and we need to have our children have a very high quality education. And there's cost to that. And I think in just the past few years, the cost has escalated, and the education of our children has changed dramatically. We're more global. Our children need to have all of the technology and all of the things that the students throughout the world have. So that's a big job for the principal, the teachers, the parents, and all of us. And I think we need to not argue about it, but come together about it and have discussions about it and move forward and try to correct some of the ills and improve the education of our children.
Thank you. Dan?
Absolutely. Just want to agree with Patty that the education system and the education of our children definitely is paramount and number one. As Kim said too within the question, it is an extremely complicated issue. It is a big issue. It's an ongoing issue. And that too should always be an issue that is up front. As you alluded to, Kim, within the question is that sometimes the state government can get in the way of the local control and local government. I'm a believer that maybe the state government should get out of the way and that we should allow more local control of the schools on a local level than have the state really dictating and controlling, as you said in the question, having total control over what goes on. It really needs to be brought down to the local level. And again, with the focus that it is absolutely paramount that the education of our kids comes first.
Well, that's a tough topic, that there's so many things that we could delve into further on the topic of education, and maybe you'll have some other comments you'll want to make later on. But I'd like to move on to another tough one, healthcare. A lot of information is out there about the Affordable Health Care Act. We could probably go on and on about the points pro and con on the legislation. But what I'm asking you is, what do you think the ramifications are in the Affordable Health Care Act for Minnesotans and for Minnesota businesses? And I think I've lost track. Is it your turn to start, Dan?
Well, we could arm ourselves see who goes first, right?
Oh, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Go ahead, Dan.
In regards to the Affordable Health Care Act, everyone out there knows that it is an extremely, extremely complicated issue. There are many unknowns out there. I attended a forum, it was just last night, and Kim was part of the panel, and it was a very interesting discussion. It had brought to the table members from all aspects of the healthcare field, from insurance providers to physicians to small business owners to administrators of the hospital. They all looked at it through different prisms, but one common denominator that you heard from the different perspective is that besides being a very complicated issue, there's still so many unknowns, so it's hard to determine what our future is going to be in 3 to 5 years. With that being said, the provisions within that Health Care Act come into effect real soon, in just over a year, and we need to continue the conversation with these leaders, not only in the medical field, the insurance field, the small business owners, but also on the state level. And Minnesota needs to continue to be out front, which we are in regards to the medical field, and how we're going to deal with these issues. It was clear from the discussion of that panel that one example is in dealing with small businesses. It is going to have a very profound and apparently negative impact on our small businesses. I believe the membership here of the Faribault Chamber of Commerce, I think if I'm correct, Kim, 80% of your members have 5 employees or less. This Affordable Health Care Act is going to negatively impact those people, and they don't know where to turn or what direction to turn. So it's imperative that we continue the discussion, that Minnesota continues to be the leader in, currently we provide high quality care at some of the best costs in the nation, which again, according to the Act, could be a detriment.
Just real quick, Dan, do you favor Minnesota establishing a healthcare exchange, or should that be done on a federal level?
It's part of the Act, has to be part of an exchange right now. The state is currently, or the governor is working towards an exchange. I believe that it should be on a federal level. I don't know if we should have an exchange or not, and there's certainly nuances of the Health Care Act which I don't agree with. Again, it's coming. We have to move forward with it. I'm glad that we're having the conversation and the governor is looking at the exchange, but at this time I believe it should be on the federal level.
Okay, Patty?
Well, the Affordable Care Act is the law. It is law, the law, and it's a good law, and I do support it. It is a complicated law, and many, many laws are. Lots of language and words in the act itself. What will happen is that, I hope, that Minnesota will have their exchange, that the state of Minnesota should show leadership, which we are doing. Actually, I have been involved in those conversations with the Commissioner of Health, with the governor and others, and the commerce people who also weigh in heavily on this. So being a healthcare worker, provider myself over the years, and also serving on healthcare finance and policy, I'm involved in this in the act and how it will affect Minnesotans. Minnesota does an excellent job delivering very, very outstanding good health care to those who have it and can afford it. Those who don't have it and do not receive any insurance sometimes go a long time and get very, very, very sick before they present to the emergency room or to those of us who need to provide care for them. And by law, we have to provide care to everyone. So when they come, the sickest of the sick, it's expensive. So we're trying to avoid that. There are things in the act, I believe, and I actually myself have worked on and had some legislation passed in the state of Minnesota for outreach, to keep people out of the emergency rooms, to get them healthy, to keep them involved in the support system that perhaps would keep them healthy so they don't have to come into the emergency room and spend millions and millions of dollars. Oftentimes I'm just absolutely amazed at how much money is spent on repeat people who come back many, many times because we don't take the initiative, because we didn't have it in law, that we should do this and prevent this, or take them aside and get them the treatments that they need. In the act, there are those. Plus, there's some other very good things. For our children who are up to age 26, they can stay on mom and dad's plan. That's a very interesting age, because oftentimes they can get in a car accident, or if they get ill, they probably, I had a nephew that died at age 25 because he didn't have insurance. He did not want to spend more money and died of aspiration pneumonia. Could have been on his parents' insurance. So it's something that affects all of us. I've been in the healthcare business most of my adult life, and I realize that there are things that need to be changed and there are things that need to be cut. And we need to take an adult look at all of this, not fight about it, but sift through it. And if Minnesota can't do it, no one can. I don't want the federal government imposing their ideas and laws on us any more than they already do in the healthcare system.
Okay, thank you. Well, maybe it's time to tackle an easier question like taxes, right? How about taxes? I'm going to ask this in the simplest way, but I know you'll each have something to share about your belief on taxes. Do you think business taxes in Minnesota are too high, too low, or just about right? And please explain your answer. Dan.
Of the 3 choices, I strongly believe that the business taxes in Minnesota are too high. And again, that is reflective on our economy and the situation that we're in right now. It also is reflective on the spending that our government is doing. I'm a firm believer that our government is spending too much. My opponent is a firm believer that the government needs to spend more, and in order to feed that spending animal, it needs to raise revenue, which it translates into raising taxes. So no, we need to address the economy. We need to get more disposable income to the middle class, and we don't do that by having a negative business climate, which Minnesota ranks 50th of 50 states in Minnesota.
Well, let me just correct you, Dan. I do not support throwing more money and feeding the government beast. I actually support tax reform and have worked at that throughout my career. Yes, I do believe that we have, I have my children in the business community who tell me about the taxes that they pay, and others, friends, family as well, who have been in business for many, many years. So when I'm in St. Paul and I'm discussing this with the tax committee chair people and the people, I don't serve on a tax committee, but I do make my voice heard for the people that I represent, and I do believe we need to take a look at the business tax that we have. And because I hear it all the time from every single business person that I have ever had a meeting with or a conversation with. So having said that, I look at the need for local government aid, those types of things. Property taxes, we do not need to, as the Republicans did, get rid of the Homestead Credit Act, which then caused our businesses to have more in taxes, our farmers, our rural communities. That was, and I've been on record and I want to go on record again, getting rid of the Homestead Credit was wrong. They should never have done that. I had a bill to bring it back, and I will continue to put legislation in to bring it back, especially out in rural Minnesota. We don't have the property taxes to pay for the things that we must have, like fire, safety, police, the roads, bridges, those types of things that we all, they're not wants, those are needs. And those are the types of things that I believe our taxes should go to pay for. I am a pretty frugal woman when it comes to my own budget, and I look at the budget of the state, and do I see where we can cut? You bet I do. And did I vote for the tax bill that did do some cutting? Yes, I did. So it didn't pass. The governor vetoed it. We didn't agree, but we have to go back and work harder at getting more tax reform in the state of Minnesota. For all of us, for small business, for the elderly who want to stay in their homes. This is a big burden on them to lose their homestead credit tax. So we do need to do the right thing by the taxpayers of Minnesota. And that's why I want to go back to continue to be a voice for all of us.
Patti, can I just ask quickly, what is your view on the taxation of internet and catalog purchases?
Well, I did sign on for that bill because I look at, the amount of money that we could have from that, and we should, and we should. So I think it's a form of revenue that is out there that we should be taking advantage of, and I've signed on to the bill early on. It didn't really get any legs, but we hope that in the future it does.
That's e-fairness, right?
Yes.
Is that the
Yep, that's what it is.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dan, same question.
Yes, and I am in agreement that when it comes to internet sales, that the state should be collecting tax, and it should be done at the sellers levels where we should be collecting the tax.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of issues that people have on their minds that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet today, but now is the time for you to bring up anything that you came hoping to talk about, and maybe issues that are really important to you. So I'm going to give you that opportunity to take 2 or 3 minutes to just speak about anything that you'd like to speak about, and then we'll conclude our session today. So I believe, Dan, you're up first.
I just want to, again, thank you for the opportunity that we're able to speak. I cannot stress enough, and I think you heard from my open remarks that priority one for our state and for our legislature is dealing with our economy, dealing with our budget, and again, we need to get more disposable income to the middle class. People are hurting out there, families are hurting out there. We need to do what we can to get things turned around and to help people out.
Okay, thank you. Any
Well,
final comments from you, Patty?
Yes, well, I could actually jump in here with Dan, because I talk about, and I just read something too from a study that I received on wages. You know, I've worked all of my life trying to improve the wages of working people, the working middle class. Myself as a nurse here in town, and then going into the legislature, again, also bringing up the wages of the nursing home workers, and that's been a top priority for me. Because when you improve the wages of the people who are caring for your loved ones, you improve the quality of care of those folks, and that has been proven, and we know that. But the study that I just received told me this, that in the last 10 to 20 years, wages have not gone up. And I know from my research, they have not gone up in 18 years, significantly, if at all. But other things have gone up. And so what has happened, and you see this 1% and 99% and all of that, the 1% did receive the profit. The rest of us didn't. And today, if a middle-class wage earner has a wage of $52,000, the difference between that and what he would have received had he received some of the profit, he would be making $88,000. The 52 would be $88,000 a year. We are all far from that, the people that myself and the people that I represent for the most part. And I look again at the workers in my nursing homes, assisted living, and disabled communities who are doing the hard work. They're dedicated, loving people, but they need to get the rates of those people increased. And so going back, I'm hoping that the governor and that the Senate and that all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle will come together with me to increase and improve the rates to our disabled and nursing home and assisted living workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. So you've heard now from Representative Patti Fritz and Challenger Dan Kaiser, our candidates for state representative. Thank you so much for appearing on our Candid Conversations with Candidates. Remember to listen for more broadcasts on FCTV featuring local candidates, and those same broadcasts will be posted on the Chamber website and on the website of our sponsor, the Faribault Daily News. I'd also like to thank FCTV and TLT Productions for making this possible. Remember to exercise your right to vote. The election is on November 6th. Thank you for becoming a more informed voter.